late Dr. Jonas Salk gave the first lecture. It was a very good beginning. And since then, we have got a very distinguished speaker to give this lecture over these years. Now we have got the opportunity to listen to one of our own in San Diego as a 35th lecturer. Now, over the years, San Diego Indian American Society has helped the cause of education in San Diego. We have contributed something like about $700,000 to the cause of education in the San Diego County. When we started the program, we recognized 10 students and gave awards of about $6,000. Today, we recognize 38 students and give awards exceeding $100,000. All of this were contributed by people of Indian origin in San Diego County. And I would like to thank every one of them, and there are about 30 families who are listed here as having the major contributors of this one. In particular, I want to mention 3 names. One is Mrs. and Mr. Ray Patel, Mrs. and Mr. R.K. P.K. Patel, Mrs. and Mr. Emma Shaw, not Mr. Bharat Shaw, I should say that. And then also Dr. Manik Wadia and his wife Harriet. And people of that nature have given us a certain amount of support over the years. So because of that, we were able to provide this kind of a support to the community members. Now, this program that we have has been very well recognized outside also. And many people feel this is something very unique in a sense. It is homegrown, it is from the local people, and they are doing it for the people in the community. There are many people in our community are giving millions of dollars, but no one is taking care of the needs of some of the people who need it the most. Right now, we have got the 3 types of programs. One is called Mahatma Gandhi Scholarship Awards. It's given to the best and outstanding students in the high school in San Diego County. The other one is called Avett Scholarship. It's also called Mahatma Gandhi. But this scholarship is given to students who are from families going to the college for the first time. And then we also have this year, we have introduced a scholarship program for the community college students. So with this, I would like to thank Lynn, the Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs in the community college, for helping us with this choice of this community college students. Now, besides these programs, we also have other programs in San Diego, most notably the Unity in Diversity program in month of March, and then the Festival of Lights, Diwali celebrations in the month of October. The next one is going to take place on October 20th. You are all welcome to do that. We get something like about 10,000 people to attend the program. You will enjoy every bit of it. Now, it is my duty and honor to introduce the speaker. And most of you may not know much about her. She is very new to San Diego. She joined the UCSD only last year. But even though she is new, that she is known, she's a star in the academic horizon. And she is very much regarded and respected by people for promoting an inclusive, proactive culture of professional development of faculty, academic staff, and academic leaders. And this is what brought her to San Diego. After a very distinguished service as Associate Provost and Distinguished Professor of Physics in Michigan State University, she assumed office last year as Executive Vice Chancellor of UCSD. She is a theoretical high-energy physicist and is currently studying how physics beyond the standard model might manifest in experiments in progress at the CERN Large Hadron Collider. Unlike many senior professors, she seems to enjoy teaching introductory physics. She graduated magna cum laude at Harvard, earned MPhil from Cambridge University as a Churchill Scholar, and a doctoral degree from Harvard. She is a fellow of American Association for Advancement of Science, American Physical Society, member of the Aspen Center for Physics, and serves on the board of directors of Association of American Colleges and Universities. Her interest in developing world is reflected in co-organizing 3 conferences on professional development for women physicists in the developing countries at the International Center for Theoretical Physics. She also has a tremendous amount of interest in India, and you'll come to know it a little later. Even though it's not, there's not enough of activities, she's a journalist, writing a regular column for Inside Higher Education, and top writer on Quora, and co-author of a recent LGBT climate report commissioned by the American Physical Society. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Elizabeth Simmons, an equally talented and accomplished physicist, her husband, Professor Shekhar Shivakula, Associate Provost and Dean of Undergraduate Studies in Michigan State University. Please come on.
Well, I'm deeply honored to have been asked to present the Gandhi Memorial Lecture. I grew up in the Midwest of the United States, and back in the 1960s and 70s when I was a child there, India was very far away, not only the same distance it is geographically now, but modern telecommunications didn't exist in the same sense. Now, Sekhar and I can converse with relatives in India by Facebook, for example, quite easily. But back then, that wasn't the case. And culturally, Ohio was, pretty isolated in some ways. But I grew up in a university town, and my parents were at the university, and so we were keenly aware of the civil rights movement taking place in the United States at that time. And of course, the work of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was deeply influenced, as you all know, by the ideas and the work of Mahatma Gandhi. And so even as a child growing up in Ohio, I was aware of Mahatma Gandhi and how he called all of us towards peace and nonviolence and taught us the importance of self-determination, even as a child back then. So that's why I feel particularly honored to be asked to speak today. I thought that I'd talk a little bit about how some of the ideas of peace and nonviolence relate to the university, not only because I work at the university, but also because we're here to honor students who are about to embark on their own university and college journeys. And the quote that I was thinking about as I'm thinking about what I wanted to talk to you about today is, "Peace will not come out of a clash of arms, but out of justice lived and done by unarmed nations." So thinking of peace in that way, well, as you've heard, I'm a physicist, and I love to teach introductory physics, and some of the ideas we talk about border a little on chemistry as well. And in physics and chemistry, there's an idea akin to peace, the idea of equilibrium. And in physics, we say a system is in equilibrium if it's either it's at rest or if it's just coasting along at constant velocity. It's not speeding up, it's not slowing down, it's not changing direction. Nothing is buffeting it from side to side. And so either it's simply not interacting with anything, like maybe a piece of dust just floating through empty space, or perhaps it could be feeling some forces, but they're balanced with one another. Like, as I stand here in front of you, I could balance so that gravity is pushing down on me, the floor is pushing up, and I have my arms out to both sides, so I'm not really tipping over. So I'm in equilibrium at this moment, even though there are forces on me. And in chemistry, there's a similar idea, chemical equilibrium, and you can get there again multiple ways, like helium atoms don't interact with the rest of the universe much. They just sit there. They don't interact chemically. But there are other things that could be in chemical equilibrium. If, for example, if you have a chemical, it might be in equilibrium if the amount that's evaporating away at any moment is equal to the amount that's coming back into the system by condensing in, or the amount that's perhaps leaving the system because of some reaction is balanced by the amount joining again through a chemical interaction. So again, that same sort of dynamic balance. And that means that if you think about the ways that one might come to equilibrium, you could think of it in the non-interacting way, like the helium atoms or the dust floating through the universe. You could think of an equilibrium where something is perhaps poised on a knife edge. It's balanced. It's not going anywhere, but the slightest breath will cause it to cascade away, cause it to fall off. So that's an unstable equilibrium. You could think of an equilibrium because there are two giant forces pushing on either side of something, holding it in place, but it's almost in danger of being crushed, but it's in equilibrium. You could think of something more delicately interactive, just light touches keeping something in balance, in poise. And so in university leadership, how does this apply? How does this apply to what I'm supposed to think about? And I wish I could solve the parking problem. There would be greater equilibrium on campus if I could immediately produce about 800 more parking spaces tomorrow. But we have to wait till the end of the month for the next parking garage to open. So we're a little out of equilibrium there. But generally, the kind of equilibrium that I'm supposed to try to help create at the university is one of that sort of dynamical kind, where things are pushing in different directions and it all kind of balances out. One example would be, one might be able to keep the university at equilibrium if you just said that people couldn't talk about certain things, if you just suppressed certain ideas. But that would be sort of like the equilibrium where you're kind of crushing things together to keep them in place. And that's not much of a university, right? We need the free expression of ideas. And so instead we strive for the dynamic equilibrium where all ideas can be talked about, but respectfully, so that one person isn't shouting over another and keeping their ideas from being heard. That means that instead of using authority to dictate what people should do in the university, one persuades, one tries to guide process, maybe use rules to promote some consistency if possible, to give an idea of what might be a good path forward. But there's a danger, of course, in using rules to get to equilibrium, because rules were made up by people, and they might be incomplete. They might not take all circumstances into account. And so in the end, in trying to promote a peaceful university, one at equilibrium, you have to step back and take a holistic view, a humanistic view, one that tries to identify overarching principles. And here's where I circle back to Mahatma Gandhi, because one of the things that has always so deeply impressed me about his approach was that he could step away from the very specific circumstances he encountered in his life, in the community right around him, and say, well, what does this tell us about a state, an entire country? What does it tell us about how the world should operate? And not many people can really think creatively at that level. So one can, within the university, try to emulate this, try to identify overarching principles. And the one that I usually come back to, again, which comes from Gandhi, power based on love is 1,000 times more effective and permanent than power derived from fear of punishment. And that's, I think, the right way to approach leadership in a large organization like a university, to try to love the institution, to love the people, and to have that guide how you interact with people. Doesn't mean you're always going to agree with everybody. Doesn't mean they're always going to agree with you or you won't fully appreciate each other, but if you remember that you love them all as fellow human beings and fellow members of the university, you might be able to see a way towards that equilibrium that you'd like to get to. So that's what I try to look at when I'm thinking about my job from day to day and try to think about it philosophically. But what about the students? I'd like to speak now to the students who are about to embark on their journeys through the university and college that lies ahead of them. And I'd like to say to you, seek equilibrium also, but be careful which kind of equilibrium you're seeking. Don't be like the helium atoms that don't interact with the rest of the universe. Don't isolate yourself within just a very narrow band of ideas or interests or people you talk to or just a very narrow range of parts of campus you go to. Because if you do that, you'll really miss out on the entire point of going to college, of going to university. Part of the point of joining this new community is to meet and speak with people who come from places you've never been and maybe you've never even heard of. You couldn't find on the map if you were just asked to. I mean, Google Maps can find everything for us, but that's another story. But also you'll encounter, well, you'll take courses probably in subjects that you may never have heard before and that certainly weren't offered in high school, because high school only offers a narrow range. You want to get beyond what high school allowed you to do and try that course that just sounds interesting and maybe you're not entirely sure what it's about. Give it a try for a few weeks, see what that's like. And I think you'll find that when you do that, you'll end up opening yourselves up to ideas that you hadn't encountered before. And some of them will be tough to understand, and some of them you may find, wow, that changes my whole perspective. I just never really thought of it that way. Sometimes it may be an image rather than an idea. For me, the image of the Lascaux caves, the cave paintings, the people, something like us, so long ago painted with the crude earth materials they had, but to show what was important to them, and what was important were the animals that they depended on for survival. That was something that just viscerally changed my perspective on art and why people make art and why it's a central part of our lives. So you'll encounter some ideas like those that will change your thinking or inspire you in some way. But I predict you're probably also going to encounter some idea that at first you may not understand, and then you may decide you just completely disagree with that idea. You think it's wrong, and then you're going to find that you're assigned to write an essay about that idea. And you're going to end up writing an essay where you vehemently describe exactly what's wrong with that idea and you critique it. And that's great. That's really important. That's a very important skill. And in fact, this is why you have to encounter new ideas. Partly because when you go out into the world beyond college or university, you won't be able to be a helium atom anymore. Even if you're, say, an artist working alone in your studio and you think, I'll never have to talk to anybody, someone's going to sell you your supplies that you make the art with. Or even if you work with found materials to make your art, you're going to want to sell the art to somebody to make a living. So you'll have to talk to some other people. And if you've taken advantage of your time during college to learn to work with people who come from different backgrounds, have different ideas, if you've learned to talk with them, work on teams with them, persuade them, you'll be better equipped for that work as an isolated artist, only talking with your vendors, or more likely, somebody who works on teams in a larger group, maybe in a corporation, maybe in a university. So don't be the helium atom. But also, don't be one of these forces seeking to impose equilibrium by crushing the things around you. Don't hold so tightly to the ideas you come to college with that you won't let other ideas in, or that you try to impose these fixed ideas on others and don't listen. Because if you go for this, the problem is, first of all, it doesn't work. Because the minute you relax, or the minute you walk away from the person you were trying to force to adopt your ideas, It's all going to disappear. It's all going to let go. It's going to float off in a different direction. But even more than that, if you're always maintaining that sort of closed, tense approach, you lose the ability to listen to others, to learn from others, to let their ideas in, let them change you, or see how you can perhaps change other people in return. And it's also important to remember that, you know, we go to college thinking that we know a lot about the world that we've been in. But none of us, as Mahatma Gandhi reminds us, nobody in this world possesses absolute truth. And what was a truth, perhaps, where we came from when we went to college, out of the community we came from, may not be an absolute truth in that other community. There may be different facts, there may be different circumstances that mean that the way the world worked for us before isn't exactly the way it works in this larger sense. So be prepared for that. Let others' perspectives in, be part of helping them get other perspectives, and so lower your defenses. Seek the equilibrium that's dynamical, where you let other people's ideas in, you share with them, and, most important of all, where you look for circumstances where maybe somebody else is not getting to speak, where somebody else is not being listened to. Invite them into the conversation. Give them a chance to be heard. Support them. Make sure that their concerns are being addressed. And when you do this, you will be promoting the peace which is the justice done and lived and done by unarmed nations. And you will be honoring Mahatma Gandhi, in whose name you are being honored today at this ceremony. So I look forward in a few years, students, to hearing what you've been doing in college and how you've lived these ideas. Thank you.
So my name is Ramesh Rao. I'm a professor here at UC San Diego, and thanks to Madhu's persuasive powers, I also serve as the vice president of the San Diego Indian American Society. You probably all know this, but the process by which these scholars are selected starts with nominations, letters from counselors, letters from teachers that the students that are familiar with the students, and there's a committee that reads through this material, including a couple of essays the students write to arrive at these winners. So the first thing we'll do is recognize the winners, and later on in the program, out of the many students who applied, we have selected 2 who will be reading their essays. So one gets a glimpse of what runs through the minds of the students who are about to enter college. So my pleasure now to call upon the students who are going to be recognized, and as we call upon them, we request that they walk up and receive these certificates. So let me start. Nishita Amancherla, San Marcos High School, and she's headed to Yale. I guess she's not here. Elena D'Souza, Poway High, headed to San Diego State. Carolina Flores, Escondido High School, headed to UC Berkeley. Dan Grishkevich, La Jolla High, also headed to UC Berkeley. Tucker Skomasa, Point Loma High School, headed to Sierra Community College. Avett Martinez, El Camino High School, coming here to UC San Diego. Political science, he said. Oscar Meza, Mount Miguel High School, going to Mesa College. Gina Milan, oh, walking up. Gina Milan, Monte Vista High School, headed to UC Santa Barbara. Diana Pham, Otay Ranch High School, headed to UCLA. Karishma Shah, Torrey Pines High School, also headed to UCLA. Ashna Sood, Del Norte High School, coming to UC San Diego. Second generation Triton. Tavisha Thapar, Torrey Pines High School, headed to UC Berkeley. Isabella Virzi, San Marcos High School, headed to San Diego State University. And finally, Ha Lei, Crawford High School, headed to UCLA. So next, Himalal, who co-chairs the Avett Scholars Selection Committee, will describe the Avett program and present the Avett Scholars.
This year, we had a pool of 46 students apply for our scholarship. We screened and narrowed it down to 15 students to interview. And then today, we have 8 students, and it is my pleasure and honor to recognize the recipients of this year's Mahatma Gandhi Avett Scholarships. The award is for $2,000 for up to 4 years, so long as a student maintains a certain GPA. Avett students are the first generation in their family to attend college. In high school, they have Avett teachers give them their tools and resources to be successful in high school and guide them through the college application process. Avett stands for Advancement via Individual Determination, and these students are determined individuals, and they will succeed in whatever they pursue. I want to invite Alejandra Lopez to come to the stage if she's here. Are you here? I didn't see you. But she'll be attending UCLA to study development biology. Tony, I know you're here. He's going all the way from Oceanside to Indiana to study at Earlham College to study environmental sustainability. He has an amazing imagination to be optimistic. And this is Tony's quote: "Life is like a road, either smooth or bumpy, and the horizon always there, motivating you to reach your goals. But as you do, you realize your goals are the fleeting moments of your memory, of your journey." Congratulations, Tony. Aylin Mejia, are you here? Ah, good. Aylin was born and raised in a low-income minority household. She has had to overcome many challenges in her life, but with her hard work and dedication, she has now become the first in her family to attend a 4-year university. This optimistic student is excited to leave Escondido and to study political science at UC Santa Barbara. Congratulations. Carla Castro, are you here? Yay, Carla. Carla will be attending UC Davis to study cognitive science and is on her way to become a neurologist. Carla is a varsity doubles champion and was her class president at Crawford High School. Congratulations. Gina Milan is not here, but I noticed she won the Mahatma Gandhi Scholarship Award too. Leslie Romo, are you here? Okay. Leslie's going to be going to UC Berkeley to study mathematics. Ruby Ramirez? I didn't see you. Okay. On her way to UCSD, study biochemistry. And I'm hoping Stephanie is here now. Stephanie Lopez? Okay. Well, Stephanie is going to go to San Diego State University to study mechanical engineering. So, on behalf of the selection committee for the Avett scholarships, we wish you all a meaningful and college experience. And as you start your journey, your next chapter in life, we wish you much, much success. Thank you very much.
As I mentioned earlier, this is the first time we are now encouraging students from the community colleges to receive this award. And one of the reasons is that many of the students have a very, very difficult time. They are not an average student, like from high school to the college. Many of them are in their 30s and 40s, and many of them have difficult handicaps, and some of them do not have enough money even to buy their own lunch. And these people are extremely hard-pressed to earn some money, and many of them have to earn some money during the daytime, sometimes going to school in the evening, at the same time take care of their parents with illness. It is very difficult to really understand how they cope up with this kind of work and the work schedule, and trying to earn few dollars to keep them alive. And these students are having a very, very difficult time. And so we decided to see what we can do to help them. When I met the Chancellor, Chancellor of this community colleges, she told me, Dr. Madhavan, all that they need is if you can give them money to go to pay for the tuition and the books, they'll be very, very happy. So she said, if you give $1,000 a year, that is more than enough right now. So according to, on her advice, we decided we'll give each student $2,000 for them to go to school, and trying to help them, if possible, with some jobs also. One of the members of the committee has offered to give at least 1 or 2 jobs to the students if they are wanting to work. So we are trying to see whether we can find jobs for them to work when they are not going to school, so that they will have enough money to fall back upon. And it is our aim to get them skills in such a way they will be able to earn at least about $30,000 to $40,000 after 2 years of education. That is our aim. So we would like to encourage our community members to support the students. And if possible, we will also try to be a big brother for them. One of our members is not here today, Kunal Roy. He is a big brother for one student. And that student did very well. He had something like about 3.8, and now he cannot go to anywhere else. So he has decided to go to a junior college in San Diego. So we try to support them. This is something we would like to encourage. If we can have big brother attitudes amongst us, we are willing to meet them maybe once a month at least, and then talk to them and make them feel they are very special. I think this is very, very important for us to do that. So we have got 16 students chosen, 15 and 1 we added to that. And of these 16 students, only 3 or 4 here today. Others are all working, trying to earn money for their classes in the fall. So Lynn, who is the Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs in the community college system, and she is here. Lynn is Dalt. Lynn, where is she? Yeah, please, yeah. And she is the one who helped us to do that thing. before I call the students to come and receive the award, I also would like to have the opportunity to tell you something that we did, something very unique this year. This year, the society sponsored an exhibition program. Some of you heard about it. Beyond Bollywood, Indian Americans Shape the Nation. This was originated with the in Washington D.C. Smithsonian, and they gave this as lent the things to New Americans Museum in San Diego. With them we collaborated and trying to have the exhibition for nearly 6 weeks. On our side, Deepa Prakalat did the work. On their side, Polly Toledo did the work. Linda, is she here? She is the director of the New Americans Museum. If you have not been there, it is in the Liberty Station, and it's worthwhile to visit. So we are trying to do something which will have direct impact on the students. We were talking about the possibility of bringing all the recipients of this award once in a while, maybe once in a semester, who are in San Diego or in LA together, and for us to sit with them and talk to them and see where we can possibly help. So this is the idea. Hopefully most of you will be able to support us. And today I read a very disquieting report about Indian Americans' contribution to the various causes. They conducted a survey of how much money an average Indian American contributes for the causes in which we believe. And it seems it's only about 1.5% of our income. So it is important. In our community, I know a lot of you do not 10%, 5% like that. But it is important for us to see whether we can chip in a little bit more. So we are now giving about $100,000, largely because of few individuals, and many of them with me for many, many years. But now how long we can go? We have been doing for 35 years. Now it's up to some of you to really take up the challenge and see how we can contribute. And so I really earnestly request each one of you to find out what is that you can do to help students here in San Diego particularly. And of course you can help people in India also, no problem about it. But what we can do for people in San Diego is very, very important to us. So I'm going to read out the names of the students who are chosen to receive this Community Scholarship Award. As I mentioned, they receive $1,000 a year and also the certificate from the Scott Peters, Congressman Scott Peters. Mohammed Anbari, is she here? Ahmad Sadid, Diamond Rodriguez. Jason Reith, Daniel Medina, Tran Lee, Chuk Lee, I think she's here, yeah. Tran Johnson, Emmanuel Hilgado Gonzalez, Olga Gonian, Alma Garcia, Alejandro Constantino, Marcelo Kong, Christian Campbell, Nidia Ramirez Ayala, I invite Lynn to come and collect all these certificates. Lynn, come on. Thank you. Thank you. Now they are going to have essays to be read now.
So, as promised, we're going to be calling on two of the recipients of these awards to read their essays. Ashna Sood.
Hello. In a world today where school shootings occur monthly, weekly, even daily, enough is enough. Shootings cannot become the new standard. People cannot grow accustomed to reading about the deaths of innocent souls. Congress cannot continue to shun out the millions of voices urging necessary regulations. Enough is enough. The beauty amidst the chaos in society today is the new leaders of change. Generation Z, my generation. Our voices are being strengthened, not silenced, and I am proud of the approach we choose to take to create a revolution. Countless lives were lost over the years. Countless families grieve over the death of loved ones. Countless politicians make promises, yet nothing really changed. The difference after the most recent shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School is that our actions are now speaking louder than words. Students across the nation have looked to history, learned from the lectures and lessons in our social sciences classes, and have implemented the power of creating a peaceful, united force. Mahatma Gandhi encouraged change and unity, not through violence, but through peaceful protests. On March 14, 2018, thousands of students across America walked out of their school campuses to fight for justice. In my school, administrators encouraged us to walk out and allowed us to walk in peaceful demonstration. Almost 2,000 students marched out of campus, holding signs and protesting for stricter gun control in the hopes that no student lose their life again. I witnessed a small part of history. There were no harsh words used. Not a single sign of aggression appeared. It was simply a sea of concerned students marching peacefully, wanting to see change and feel safe on school campus. This movement was continued again on March 24, 2018, when students and adults marched for an end to school shootings and stricter gun control regulation. Little boys and girls marched. Older adults marched. Those who could not physically be at the march sent their support. Aside from the Women's March over the past few years, this is the first major movement I have witnessed. I feel empowered. This is the first time I can stand up for a cause in a manner that would have made Mahatma Gandhi proud. This is not a small movement that will fade away. We have the power to strengthen the momentum we have built and continue to peacefully protest for stricter gun laws until our voices are heard. As many of us students who are standing up for stricter gun control are coming of age, we will soon have the power to vote and make our voices heard on a new level, one Congress cannot resist. Positive steps have already begun this past month. Retailers that sell guns have imposed stricter restrictions, increasing the legal age to purchase guns to 21. Many companies have broken off all ties with the National Rifle Association. Celebrities, entrepreneurs, and people with influential platforms are showering their support towards the Never Again movement, demanding change as well. And the tech and social media savvy Generation Z are using these outlets to unite, instigate change, and reach out to their local leaders. Teenagers, including myself, have already pre-registered to vote, as we want to be more involved in our political environment. In the meantime, we are learning to deal with the realities of school shootings by having regular drills at school and implementing stricter security on campus. These actions stem from students who not only used their voice, but took action in a practical way. Emma Gonzalez, an 18-year-old survivor of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School shooting and activist of the Never Again movement, is empowering young people to speak out against school shootings. In a nationally televised speech on March 24th, Emma honored the 17 lives that were cruelly taken in the shooting and began a long period of silence. The duration of her speech lasted 6 minutes and 20 seconds, where she initially spoke and then remained silent. The silence symbolized how students felt during the duration of the shooting at their school. This parallels Mahatma Gandhi, where he would remain silent, fast, or peacefully support his cause, even when he was in jail. Emma was similarly able to grab the attention of the nation by her silence. If our generation wishes to further create change, we must continue to be inspired by leaders such as Mahatma Gandhi, who understood that violence never solves the problem. We must continue to lead such movements where we are not afraid to speak up against powerful politicians in a polite yet effective manner. We must not be afraid to sacrifice our time and efforts for a worthy cause. It is not enough to claim support of the cause. Actions speak louder than words. Gandhi's most powerful message was to be the change you wish to see in the world. Generation Z will be that change. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ashna. Our next reading will be by Dan Gruskovich.
Summer break, a time for family and fun. After finishing 8th grade, in June, I was anxiously awaiting the day that my vacation would truly begin, the day of my flight to Israel. Once I arrived, I would finally be reunited with the grandparents and cousins who I had last seen a year and a half prior. And then, on July 4th, 2014, I arrived in Israel. Jet-lagged, I went straight to my grandparents' guest room and went to sleep. But when I woke an hour later, I realized that this vacation would be a little bit different. It was not an alarm clock that woke me, nor issues with jet lag. I was awoken by a sound with which I would become much too familiar. The missile warning system, followed 90 seconds later by the sound of an explosion. For the month prior to my return to San Diego, my day-to-day life was plagued with anxiety, constantly looking for the nearest bomb shelter. This was not an experience I would wish even on my greatest enemies. Yet, on TV, I could see what was happening just a few miles away on the other side of the border. And it was much worse. Constant bombings, and without the calming privilege of advanced missile defense systems. Over 2,000 people dead, the majority of which were civilians. Families lost everything. And why? Because the leadership of these two people cannot come to an agreement? Because a terrorist militia group has taken matters into its own hands and tried to end the conflict with violence? It is all futile. Every act of violence, on both sides, creates further distrust, distancing us from peace and bringing with it more violence. In the years that have passed, I have thought back to my experiences that summer many times. I still carry with me a sensitivity to sudden sounds that developed that summer. Oftentimes, I try to think about alternatives to the violence. I've always looked at youth, who have yet to develop a hatred of the other, as the path forward. In my many hours working with youth, as a counselor at the Israeli Scouts, I have always focused on teaching kids about the value of diversity and the importance of treating all people equally, key tenets of the Scouts movement. In addition to these morals, I also made sure to place an extra emphasis on our yearly activity and ceremony in memory of the late Yitzhak Rabin, a man who lost his life in the quest for peace. I did not only work with younger kids, though. I also worked with teens my own age to show them that coexistence is possible, and that we can have a dialogue without violence. One way I did this was by reaching out to Sarah, a Muslim girl at a different school, and tell her about my idea for a Jerusalem task force of Muslim and Jewish teens coming together for community service. For our first event, I emailed the Surfrider Foundation to join their beach cleanup, and 2 weeks later, 10 of my Jewish friends from throughout San Diego were picking up trash at Pacific Beach with 10 of Sarah's Muslim friends. At our next event, we volunteered at the San Diego Food Bank, where we packaged 600 boxes of food for low-income seniors. We also created a team for the JDRF One Walk, where we raised money in honor of Shayna, a Jerusalem task force member with type 1 diabetes. Ethnic disagreements have caused much conflict, but seeing teens come together, make friends, and help the community makes me believe that that can change. Gandhi once said, "Nonviolence, which is the quality of the heart, cannot come by an appeal to the brain." My heart has felt the pain and devastation that violence brings into our lives. I have mourned for victims, cried at images. No heart should have to suffer from the wounds that violence brings upon it. We should be able to have dialogue. We should be able to see the humanity in the other side. We should be able to coexist. Violence is not the solution. It never has been. It never will be. The solution is connecting to the heart with compassion and love, and educating our youth to see the world through the lens, and then we can have nonviolence.
So thank you very much, Dan. Couple of closing comments before the reception. I wanted to take this opportunity to reinforce what Madhu said. Right now is a good time to give to the cause. They say anything more than $500 is a spousal decision, and the spouses are also here. So you can decide right now to give and help carry this forward. We end up spending as a society most of our time organizing events and not enough of our time asking folks to contribute. We rely on your goodwill. So just don't think twice, just do it right now. To the numerous volunteers from the community, from the Qualcomm Institute, folks who've been involved year after year in helping stage this, you understand what a distributed effort this is and how magically it comes together and flows nicely every year. So my personal thanks to everybody in the community that helped make this happen. And I think it was very memorable for me to hear Dr. Simmons underscore the importance of making sure that the students who are headed to college learn something that they weren't aware of when they entered college, right? I think to have an open mind is an important thing. And so I'm going to sneak something in here, which as an electrical engineer, a person who's involved in wireless communications, to be honest, I was quite astonished. When I was headed to college, in all our science classes growing up in India, there was this one name that was mentioned. We, of course, all heard of Mahatma Gandhi and wrote many essays about him like you have. But there was this other man that was spoken of as a slightly eccentric scientist. He was actually a physicist. His name is Jagdish Chandra Bose. J.C. Bose was known for a variety of things, and what we were most familiar with was his experimental apparatus to demonstrate that plants had feelings. George Bernard Shaw apparently once visited him, and he had an instrument that showed cabbages displaying emotions while they were being boiled in a pot. So in a way, he was thought of as a bit of a fringe, eccentric scientist. But I was astonished as we are poised in the telecommunications world for the next generation of telecommunication systems, the so-called 5G systems. There's plenty of telecom experts in this room. One of the frequency bands that is being considered for super high-speed communications, gigabits per second to your cell phone is 60 gigahertz, a very high frequency, right? We haven't been using frequencies that high for communications. And the first person to demonstrate communication in 60 gigahertz was J.C. Bose in Calcutta in 1890. He was actually a contemporary of Mahatma Gandhi. And at heart, he was an experimentalist. He built things and demonstrated stuff that nobody thought could be done. And my most distinguished colleagues in wireless say that to this day, the devices you use to transmit and receive signals in 60 gigahertz is not very different from what J.C. Bose had invented. So as you head off to college, I know that the temptation will be to go more and more virtual. We no longer build anything, we simulate everything, everything is on a screen, but I think there is something to be said about being able to get your hands on stuff that follows the laws of physics, things that are material, things that you can hold and experiment with, and in a strange way, that was one of the other endearing memories from my own childhood, taking science classes. So wish you well as you go forth. For the rest of the afternoon, what we have is a reception, thanks to Bombay Coast, and Qualcomm Institute. Qualcomm Institute. Madhu, as you know, has the ability to persuade people to do things. So he worked on Bombay Coast, and they have underwritten, and our staff too. I personally want to recognize Lovella, who's sitting there in the corner. And this is an interdisciplinary research institute where we begin to get glimpses, perhaps even as we walk through, of how different disciplines combine to address problems. And so in the room next door, during the time of the reception, we'll have an opportunity for you to wander through and experience some of the visual material that represents a little sliver of the interesting stuff that goes on at a great place like UC San Diego. Thank you very much. And now we'll do the photographs, right? All the